Awesome, thank you, Alex. Some of you guys might remember me. I'm the deputy editor of American Cranes and Transport magazine. I'll be chairing this roundtable. Originally, the session was going to be chaired by Kleopatra Kyrimi of Sarens, but she unfortunately had to be elsewhere today. But she did, however, record a short video for us to watch, which we'd like to go ahead and cue up now, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kleopatra Kyrimi, Group Head of Marketing and Communications at Sarens, and I am with you today representing the global leader and reference in crane rental services, heavy lifting, and engineered transport. Although I'm not physically present with you today, I'm truly honored to contribute to this important conversation on behalf of my colleagues in human resources and marketing and communications. We're facing a serious challenge, one that touches every corner of the crane and transport industry. Sourcing skilled professionals like crane operators, riggers, and technicians has become increasingly difficult. The reasons are layered, but one thing is clear. The generational shift is real and it's reshaping expectations around work. Let's be honest, physical presence is no longer the norm, and yet there's no profession that demands it more than that of a crane operator, a rigger, or a technician. We're not at the stage where technology can fully replace human expertise. So the life of a crane operator, while essential and often fascinating, is not always seen as an attractive career prospect by young generations. Add to that what we now call the demographic cliff, a shrinking younger population, and the challenge becomes even more pressing. The pool of candidates is smaller and smaller, and we are all feeling the impact in our recruitment departments. But here's where the opportunity lies and where I see that marketing and communications can play a part. Together with our HR colleagues, we've been tasked with reimagining how we present this profession to Generation Next. We're working to speak their language to show them the value and pride of being a blue-collar worker in a way that resonates with their worldview. Employer branding is no longer a side note. It's central to our strategy for the next decade. We need to showcase the stories, the impact, and the sense of purpose that comes with operating these incredible machines. And we need to do it in formats and channels that Gen Zs and Gen Alphas engage with naturally. The other day, I was discussing with a seasoned HR colleague, and she was telling me that despite the challenging road ahead of us, when she got pictures of crane operators showing her what they see, sitting from the crane cab, saying this is the best office view in the world, she was reminded that our mission to bring more crane operators on board to build the world is a great one. She helped me remember it too, to be honest. Solving this challenge is not just about securing talent, it's about securing business continuity, growth, and competitiveness. And that's a message for all of us, but especially for individual companies involved in hiring blue-collar talent. So as this summit is a space for exchanging ideas and concerns, I'd love to spark a conversation with a few questions. What is the extent of the shortfall of people in the company's workforce? What are the biggest issues with recruitment? What are the biggest issues with staff retention? Do you notice differences in behaviors between blue collars and white collars? What are the above specifically in relation to women? What are you doing to attract, develop, and retain the right people? How do you continue to motivate and engage your workforce? And what about the age-old issue of reluctance to train or invest in people because of the risk of losing them to competitors who don't? Our Chief Human Resources Officer, Tess Lombard, recited recently in a meeting the oldest saying in the book. If you train them, you may lose them. But if you don't, and they stay? And speaking of women, let's talk about an unexplored pool of talent. Today, the demographic cliff means fewer mothers around. If motherhood has historically been the #1 factor keeping women from acquiring positions traditionally held by men, perhaps we're not looking deeply enough into how we can solve the shortage of blue-collar talent among women. Although I'm sure we may get some eyes rolling in mentioning this option, allow me to share with you a number I got from Alex Dam's Friday Roundup a month ago. Only in the UK, the construction industry is short of 250,000 workers. That's 250,000 people. As editor-in-chief of Sarens Women Plus, the pioneering feminist magazine in the heavy lifting sector, I can tell you, we always struggle to find women to interview, let alone crane operators. And maybe we need to ask ourselves, are we truly ready to include more women in the industry? Even something as seemingly trivial as personal protective equipment not being tailored to women speaks volumes. It's a small detail, but it reflects a larger cultural gap. And that too is food for thought. From Madrid to Dublin, I send you my warmest regards. I hope fruitful conversations unfold today and that everyone attending the World Crane and Transport Summit 2025 walks away with fresh ideas and renewed energy. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dam and the entire KHL crew for your tireless work and dedication. You make these events not only possible, but powerful. From all of us at Sarens, thank you.
And with that, we'll go ahead and welcome the participants of our roundtable to the stage. Please give a hand for Blanca Claeyssens from ASA France, Lisa Faymonville of Faymonville, Katie Kelleher from the CPA, and Kevin Kwateng of Project Logistics. Okay, thank you guys again for being a part of the roundtable. We would like to go ahead and start and have you introduce yourself to the audience, just a little bit about yourself and your business whenever you're ready.
Ladies first.
Ladies after. I'm Blanca Claeyssens, we already met this morning. So I will bring my insights of the aviation industry back here. Nowadays at ASA, I work to merge and find other companies bringing together in France. And so together with my former insight of leading cabin crew members and pilots, because we made TUI as we know it today in one company. There were 5 companies throughout Europe before. I can bring and share some insights of this industry into the other ones.
Thank you. Katie Kelleher, former crane operator and appointed person, currently working for the CPA, working on technical guidance, health and safety documents, and generally trying to make the workforce a better place to be. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Faymonville. I'm head of human resources at Faymonville. We're a trailer manufacturer, and I'm part of the 7th generation of our family business.
Kevin Kwateng, engineer and CEO of Project Logistics Engineering Solutions. We provide consulting, engineering, and software for the heavy haul and heavy lift market.
Thanks, guys. As we kind of get started, I just wanted to address the audience. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll kind of answer them intermittently. That way you guys can kind of join in the conversation as well. So we'll just kick things off. In the lifting and specialized transport industry worldwide, obviously we know there's a really big recruitment crisis, and more people are retiring or leaving the industry than they are joining it. How, in general, can we address this? And Katie, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, I think that it's a really tough one. We've just done a report. We mentioned some numbers around the UK earlier, and there's 250,000 people we need every year to fill the pipeline that we've got. And we've got 500,000 people retiring in the next decade, 10 decades. So we're in a trouble point. How do we change that? I think the simple answer is we need to change culture, we need to change visibility, and we need to look at progression for our teams and our workforce in order to change that. That's the very basic, simple answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, you want to go next?
I was just going to go with the visibility point as well, because I do think, especially for us as a manufacturer, we don't get to do the actual amazing, phenomenal projects, and so we're a bit on the back end, and people do have. I always have the impression that people don't think about our industry. They just assume all these buildings and projects. They just happen to be there, But how they actually come to place, no one really thinks about it. And I think it's getting exactly that visibility out to the labour market, to the work market, and really bringing the message of, hey, we're here, we're cool, look at this, you know, and you can work for us. So I would agree with that, yeah. Kevin?
I agree with what you've said already. The visibility is definitely the hardest part. Coming from the asset-based side, you know, we have a lot of customers that don't allow us to take pictures or videos or even share that information out with the general public. And I feel like that's a shame, but understandable on the other side as well. Because everybody that sees the type of videos, the type of pictures, the type of movements live, it's more than just a transportation, it's an event. There's a lot of projects that I've worked on in the past where they were crossing through towns. People will literally set up chairs to come and actually watch overnight and see, you know, the big load crossing through their town and taking pictures and coming along and trying to get hats and all this type of stuff, because it becomes very festive, because it's very unique, very different, and for some people, or the majority of people, it's once in a lifetime experience. And so I really think that it's getting the visibility, but really making a push, especially now with the social media, and finding different ways of sharing individual stories, like I'm a crane operator, here's a day in the life, you know, here's the day in the life of an SPNT operator, and really getting to understand and get a feel for what it is. And just one last thing is, in the video that you showed a little bit earlier, and you're talking about the best view from an office is in the crane. I saw on social media the post about that, and you should see how many people liked that post. Just because, again, it's different, it's unique, and it's very different from the normal 9 to 5 that most people do.
Yeah, I think we just need to ignite the spark, because everything is there. It's just like aviation. Everybody, I don't know why, likes planes and talking about accidents and all those things. And in the crane industry, it's the same. It's like really sexy and massive, everything that we are doing. So it's not like the nuclear industry, where they are also lacking 100,000 people over the coming 10 years, where you have the problem with, it's nuclear, and some people are like it and some don't. In those big cranes and those projects, they are by definition likable. So the only thing we need to do is get it out there and get people think, hey, that's also something you can do. That's basically how I end up in being a pilot. I never thought about it. I wanted to be a lawyer. And in the end, I just flew with somebody, and then they said, oh, and I was like, oh, that's also a job I could do. And they said, not you, you're not good in math. You never succeed. And I said, oh, yeah, tell me what not to do. And then I did. But if you don't know that it's a job and it exists, then you will not think about it. And it's as you say, we saw a project last in France where they lined up chairs for the building of the how it's called, the platform where they put on the floating windmills. And so they invited everybody to see from a distance how it was done. We should seize those opportunities to children and everything, to see this guy is doing that, and you can also become this and that. And not just focus on the boring stuff, which is the engineering part.
Whoa, I'm getting offended, you know? Can I just add something to this again? Since I'm being picked on for being an engineer, I'll defend my people for a second. No, so I'm a product actually of sharing the industry with outsiders, because the majority of the people that are in this industry either grew up in it, so dad or uncle was a truck driver or a rigger or some sort, or they just kind of fell into it. I feel like everyone else kind of just falls into it, but how I got into it as an engineer was I ended up watching this show called Mega Movers. And it had a lot of the people that, you know, I get the chance to work with now, you know, the Berards of the world, the Mamuts, the Sarens, the Fagiolis, of course. And so what was really cool was seeing this and being like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know this world existed. And then after that, just being lucky that life kind of threw an opportunity and a lifeline at me. But the idea is that knowing and seeing, then all of a sudden it just sparks the interest and it's like, okay, I can do that, and then your passion just takes the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely, well said. Kind of piggybacking off of that, the $1 million question is how can we make the industry more attractive to that younger demographic that's just kind of entering the job market? How do we start getting people interested? I know we touched a little bit on social media, so feel free to elaborate on that as well. And even making them aware of it, even in early childhood, I think it'd be a great place to start. Blanca, you want to kick us off?
There's one thing I thought of ever since we met at the last ASTA meeting, and it is the initiative on, for example, there's a contest of crane operators, which they do between one another. The last one was in Finland, which brings, of course, the idea of, we can do this, and so it brings a little bit of publicity. But I thought we should do like sort of the same thing but for children, because I was once, and I don't recall in what park it was when I was little, and I think it was in Birmingham, and you could operate like a small crane, and it's far more difficult than flying, I can assure you. So well done. and there you see how it is and how difficult it is and what comes to it, and so you can discover, and I think we should find more things to ignite the young people in discovering this industry.
I think if I can add onto something on that, I would, the way it's always, I think the people entering the work or the market, it's already, in a terms, too late. You have to start earlier. And what we do is really, we start at primary school level, kind of, talking to schools, calling them up and being like, hey, do you want to come over? We'll organize a day and we'll get the kids, girls and boys interested. We'll do a little project. And in the moment itself, it feels like a bit of a, I have to work very hard to convince our kids to take their time and invest it in that. But it can feel like a marathon. But when you get years later, a little, CV at the table, and you're like, oh, someone remembered us. Someone remembered us. And that feels like a little success. But you have to start super, super, super early. You have to get yourself on the radar, otherwise it doesn't work.
I think it's a mix. I think it's early engagement. It's social media. Yes. Your best assets are your people. Mm-hmm. So then believing in you and talking about you. And early days when I started posting on social media, and it was simply because there wasn't enough women out there operating cranes, and there wasn't enough young people seeing female role models doing these different kind of things. And I think you've got to hit people where they're using it. So young people are using TikTok, they're using Instagram, they're using all these different places. And we've slowly seen the rise of the influencer in the construction space with massive followings. And that's what they're looking at. They're looking at people digging holes, moving dirt, and they're enjoying it because kids love plant. I'm a STEM ambassador. I go into schools and they talk about working in industry. And the moment you stick a crane up there, showing a video, they're all over it. They love it. I've got these little stickers in that I give out to kids, and it's that kind of engagement that they remember, because when I was in school, we didn't have people coming in and talking about what they do and all these possibilities. And I think it's just saying to young people, look, there are these options out there, and you can be or do whatever you want to do. But have a look at what we do. Have a look at our apprenticeships. We've got, degree apprenticeships. We've got non-degree apprenticeships. It's all out there for you. We will support you. We are an industry that supports young people. We are an industry that supports progression. If you want it bad enough, that's why we're all still here. That's why people have been here 50 years, 20 years, 30 years, because we're an industry that allows that growth. And I think it's so important to get out there and just show what we do.
Kevin, you have anything to add?
I think the majority of it has already been said in a very eloquent way. The only couple of things I will add is gamifying it. And so having kids, adults and kids just enjoy games. or most people anyway. And so finding ways of just adding that into the culture. So building a Lego set that, for the industry. And now you can build a cargo, you can build a transformer, you can build a SPMT, you can build a crane. And then now all of a sudden you have a Lego set at home that you can play with. Or even just have at the office, and then people, it's a talking point. So doing small things like that would be really cool. I'll mention more kind of the university, because again, that's again a different age group and a different generation, and I think we have to tackle different generations differently. So at universities, again, the majority of people are looking for something to do to pay their bills, join some kind of camaraderie. And again, the majority of people have no idea about what it is that we do. And so I feel like the universities is a really untapped area and market in terms of just getting our information out there. Because you have a lot of people that study in a lot of, let's say, technical skills that don't necessarily get the chance to apply it into industry. And I'll give you an example, like the university that I went to, let's say 50% of the engineers that actually graduated didn't actually stay in engineering. And so you have a lot of people that are good in math or good in some kind of technical capacity, or are not necessarily using that for industries that could be beneficial. And so, again, instead of having them go and work at Starbucks, well, why not have them come work with us? I think the benefits are also better too, salary-wise and also in terms of career.
Yeah, for sure. Lisa, we just were chatting beforehand. You had mentioned that Faymonville is opening a facility in America, in Arkansas, I think you said. And you kind of touched on the recruiting efforts that have gone into that. Can you speak to that a little bit, and then everyone else can feel free to chime in on how you do your best recruiting for your company?
Sure. So this is cannot talk success yet, because we're in the midst of that. We are currently opening up our first US production site. It's in the middle of construction, but as an HR department, we're of course, preparing the way to be able to, to function at, next year. And so there's so many blank spaces currently, because we know what we need, we know how many profiles we need, we do not know the skill set yet. We're in contact with local schools, universities, really going into the specifics of, okay, what is it you get taught? Speaking about the welder, welding is our most critical, let's say, profile we have. If we don't get the welding right, we're no one. So this is currently the main focus point. We're really comparing curriculums to what we're used to what we know we already need to teach someone when they start locally here in Europe, where there's, let's say, a difference between what they get taught in school and what we would need. Trying to compare that from what it's like in the States. What we've currently discovered is that there will be more effort needed to get the skill set right. And so we're really just, building up, modules. We'll be teaching locally to get, the skill set right, to get the numbers, and to then start producing, So it's, we're in the middle of it all, finding our way through it, and hoping for the best, working towards it. It's very exciting, it's all new, and you get to discover really a new market, a new market, and compare it to what we used to,
I think it's really hard, and we struggle a lot with it in the UK, that there's a disconnect between what young people are coming out of college with. So as companies, we're expecting them to be ready and good to go, and quite often they're not ready and good to go. They haven't got the skills that we need. So a lot of it's down to, when we talk to the colleges, they've got a lack of materials, they've got, especially in the plant world, they've got a lack of access to modern plant. So when we're talking about EV vehicles and things like that, they just don't have access to these things. So these connections are really important, and I would stress that to anyone who is, OEM manufacturer. Connect with colleges, give them the facilities that they need in order to produce the best people that you want to take on, because it's the only way you're going to get people out that other end who are ready to go. Because at the moment they're coming out, they can't get work, they're going, well, what have you been learning? And they've got old tech, they've got old plant, they've got old engines, and they're doing their very best, but they're never going to come out ready and what we expect them to do.
And to add on to that, I think there's a bit, because we started out talking about visibility, even in terms of, you know, school curriculums or what is demanded by a government for a certain job, there's such a lack. So there's a lot of lobbying involved as well into creating exactly what the industry needs, and really making sure that difference between reality or what they get taught in school and what we actually need is as small as possible, because otherwise you just tend to lose time and to get them up to what everyone needs.
Kevin, you look like you had a thought. Do you want to jump in on this one?
No, it was just because that point exactly is really a hot topic where I'm from now. And a lot of freight forwarders, a lot of transport companies, a lot of crane companies are actually building a curriculum specific. So it's, instead of education saying, let's build a curriculum for industry, it's more industry is saying, let's build a curriculum for academics. And it's really interesting because now it's very detailed in terms of, okay, well, level 1 is this, level 2 is this, level 3 is that. And when you come out, you're a fully functioning person. And even to supplement that as well, it's, and again, in Canada and the US, the way it usually works is you have about 4 months or your first semester, then you have, let's say, or actually your first year, then internship, second year internship, third year internship, fourth year and then internship. And so now we've built a curriculum that is based on industry. Now come and apply what you've learned. And then next year do the same thing. And then now it's just producing a lot of really interesting candidates. And so, again, minimizing the time difference in terms of when you graduate and how effective you are. And I feel like that's also a retention enhancer as well, because there's a lot of barrier when somebody comes into an industry or into a field and they just don't get it. And then at a certain point it's like, I'll just go do something else. And that's something that we also need to protect the industry from, is just too many people joining and then just not sticking around.
Absolutely. Really quickly, just a quick check-in. Does anyone have any questions that they want to give to the panel at this point?
Yeah, I just had a comment. So, I'm from Texas, and we just wild. I mean, it's just yeah, thanks. So you know, a couple of businesses that I'm very familiar with in Texas. You know, we probably have more prisoners than any country in the world. And so in Texas, there's an incredible number of prisons and a big population. And both of these companies, they're both above $2 billion in annual turnover. Both of them said that their best employees come out of the prisons. Because when they come out of prison, they have to have a job. And they show up every day on time. You're teaching them skill, you're teaching them weld, you're teaching them assemblies, you're teaching them fabrication, that sort of thing. So I don't know if you guys would take that seriously, but just an idea.
I think it's a very interesting thought, because we are used to looking in silos and saying, okay, so you are that person, so this is your job because you studied for that and you will continue doing that. But today we don't, and we don't need to. So we can open it up to different industries, and we can focus on what is the competence of the person itself. If you are somebody who is meticulous, if you are somebody who likes to create something, if you are, then you might just be the perfect crane operator. And that has nothing to do with what you have learned in school or whatever. It is just who you are. And then you will be fit for that job, and you will like it, and you will continue and stick around. And that's what we see also, for example, in the nuclear industry with their lack of people. Now they start looking at the aviation industry, because they say, oh, with, they are also meticulous and they also need to make sure that everything is right, just like in the nuclear. So let's use those people. And a lot of people run from the aviation industry nowadays to nuclear positions. And so I think we need to step out of the different silos that we've used to use in our head and just mingle and focus on who we are and what the person is good at.
That's such a good point, because we definitely as an industry should be, let's say, recruiting more people that are playing Xbox and have Cheetos on their fingertips. Because the precision, like if you look at some of these people who put in an amazing amount of hours in terms of being good at those type of skills, well, reflexes, eye-hand coordination are so high that they could very well become, crane operators or SPMT operators. And so, and then again, the other thing too is also thinking about the future of the industry, where a lot of people are now being trained with simulators and simulations. Essentially that's exactly what it is. So why not take these individuals who are already doing that for pleasure and now put them and give them an opportunity. So get Cheetos off of your fingertips and get some dirt on and some grease on and let's go, So.
I think with the prisoners as well, just going back to that, I've seen it done really well. We've got some companies in the UK, such as Lynch Plant Hire, who've done a prison scheme that's gone really well. And I think what you take from that is handing someone the ability to change their life. They can be your very best employee. And that's with prisoners, that's with people returning to work, that's with career changers.
That's with people had in accidents as well.
Yeah.
You should keep them.
That's it.
Invested millions of dollars in them.
It's, but just giving someone that opportunity, they'll become your best spokesperson. They'll become your company's biggest ambassador, exactly. They'll be out there saying, these guys are great. And that's exactly what you want. So yeah, I think talking to prisons and working that way, definitely the way forward. An untapped resource almost, that we can train people to do anything. If we put the time and money into it, as long as someone's got the willing and they want to do it, then definitely.
Great question. We're going to switch gears just a little bit. Doug had some really great things to say about women in the industry, so we wanted to open up that topic. Women really are just an untapped resource for this industry. So how do you think we can attract them, improve PPE, facilities, navigate any potential resistance from kind of a more old-fashioned industry? If you guys could weigh in on that.
I'll keep quiet here.
Oh, you got it, you got it. Look, this is something I'm really passionate about, and I think, when I first started operating, I thought, every woman should do this, it's fantastic, we should all be out there, let's get everyone involved. And quite quickly you realise that that's not really the problem. The problem isn't recruitment, the problem is retention. And that's with men and women. So we've got a huge retention problem. And if we're speaking about women, like you say, well, women and men, it could be down to PPE, you're fitting PPE, how do you do your job? If your PPE is hanging over your wrists, if you're falling over your boots, if you can't do things. We've just released a BSI standards, dropping in there for about PPE. So British standard, free to download, so it's accessible to everyone. But yeah, and then you've got the problem of women turning up on site. I don't want to go too negative into things, because I can do that. But so you're going to site every day. For instance, you're sharing a toilet with welders. Suddenly you're dreading going to work. You turn up on your first day at work. It's awful. It was awful. It was horrendous. If I was younger, I wouldn't have gone back for that second day. So how do we mitigate these things? How do we make people sustain? How do we increase flexibility for both men and women? We were talking about it. Everyone has things that come up in their life, whether that's having children, whether that's having elderly parents, whether that's health problems. And all we need to do is treat people as people. How do we best treat people as people to look after them? Why do we want to throw away 30 years, 20 years of service, of, knowing what they know, that experience, and just go, no, we can't do this. This is too hard for us. We can't facilitate that. Why can't we have a day shift and an evening shift? Why can't we split that? Yeah, it doesn't work for everyone. Look, I get it. You might want to do 60, 70 hours a week every week, bring in the money, and that might be really good for a time, but it might become a time in your life Well, that doesn't work anymore. And that's for men and women. And we need to go into a company with policies, strong policy. I know I'm going off on one, but with strong policies, young people want to know what your policies are. So, for instance, I was talking about a female singer signaller recently, who got pregnant, wanted to have a baby, fine. But she didn't understand how the company would support her. She didn't understand if she loved what she'd done. She loved her job. She's done it for 10 years. She didn't understand how she would go back into work managing having a child. And nobody gave her those answers. So she didn't know whether she'd have a job to go back to. Why do we want to lose those 10 years of skills by just not being flexible? And for me, that's a big, retention's the biggest problem that we have in this industry. Far more than recruitment. The problem is we need to fix culture, we need to fix retention before we push more people into the door.
Thank you. That was great. Anyone else want to weigh in?
Maybe I'd like to take up one point Doug mentioned as well, which comes into play with diversity, having more people around a table taking decisions with not the same glasses on. There's so much incredible value having, and I'm not talking, and even if I look at the room here, it shows kind of the level of diversity, if, not judging, but it does. Yep. And getting people around the table taking decisions on topics together with different glasses is essential to creating a more diverse and inclusive workspace and really getting down to, just taking one example of what we currently had, we asked ourselves the same question, and we're nowhere near as far as we'd like to be on having, including women in the workspace, and I'm talking production level here, blue-collar workers. Yet, in any renovation we do of our buildings, did we think about including separate changing rooms for women? Up until this point, no. It comes down to micro decisions every single day at the end of the day to make sure we create those spaces for women to actually feel comfortable, or for other profiles to feel comfortable in a company, and to maybe make it through that first day, and to get back and really start working and start providing value. And without getting those people around the table, you'll never change that. It's just because people who have the same glasses on think alike. You never want people in a room to think alike in the same direction. It just doesn't add up. Yeah.
Really well said. And just kind of in closing, as we're getting towards the end, could you each tell me in a few sentences what you think our audience should take away? What's the most important from this session today?
May I start off?
Absolutely.
I have two thoughts that I think can be of use. The first one is about men and women toilets. We were the first of making fun of it, because when I get out of the cockpit, I tell all passengers to go to the back, to the men's toilet, because this is the women's toilet. And then they do. This is fun. But so we don't have that, and I don't think we need it. Of course, aviation is not the biggest example, because we also have just around 10% of female pilots. But I don't think the problem is a female toilet, because nowadays go to a restaurant and then on the door there's not a woman or a man anymore, there's a panda. So you can go and be whoever you want and go to the same toilet. You just want clean toilets. It doesn't matter for whom it is. So that's one thing. We don't bother either to having more people or women into the industry in aviation or in this one more than we say that there is a lack of male in the education industry. So why are we still making fuss about it? Just find people, that's what we want to do. And then to give an answer to the question that you asked to previously, how does it come that women... There's one thing I think culturally we need to stop doing, and that's saying to little boys, have fun, and to the little girls, be careful. This is where it starts. We are cautious and don't make yourself and don't do that and don't do, and to the guys, go off and have fun and enjoy. And that's what's basically forming us for all those years. So if we want to change, let's start there, in my opinion.
As a societal issue, yeah.
What are you supposed to say after that?
Right.
I think it's important that everyone feels safe and respected at work. You're not going to keep your staff if people don't feel safe and respected. And for me, that starts with talking to your workforce, asking them what they need. It's not often we talk to the workforce and we ask them what they need. And are they happy? And is there any way we can make their lives better? And I think the moment we start treating people as people is the moment we start moving forwards. I know in the UK there's a very much, when you work on construction sites, there's a very much them and us feeling. So it's us on site and it's them in the office. And I think the moment we start closing that gap and we become a team and we become working for the same company, is the moment we all move forward together. It's about treating people as people, and that's it. That's as simple as it is. Thank you.
We talked about that last night, and I would agree with that. I see it on a daily basis. We tend to, and not in our industry, but in making sure we have the difference between seeing everyone as a group and as, you know, in a silo, you mentioned it earlier, but really seeing the individual and seeing the individual motivation behind a person, listening and actively listening to whoever's speaking. And that might be someone has elderly parents and needs to take care of it, and because that's the fact or that's their situation, they might struggle at work, but hearing that and not only being okay with it and being, yeah, I need to move on, but listening and changing and adapting the situation. And people will be grateful for that. And seeing the individual, I would say as well.
Mr. Buckner mentioned it earlier, think differently. And I think in this situation, you've got to look at this from a different angle in terms of recruitment and retention. For sure, we can do everything from, you know, school visits, Legos, puzzles, e-games, you know, having like, electronic, simulations and all this type of stuff. But the reality is, if everybody here in the room moves one person from their general life and brings them into the industry, then we'd solve the problem in a weekend. So I think that we also got to take a look at, let's not overcomplicate this. Let's just look at it from a general perspective of how can I bring one of my friends or one of my family members that's not, bring them in, and then we'll just move on from there.
Okay, really well said, guys. I just wanted to open up one more time if anyone has any questions before we kind of wrap things up. Oh, got one in the back, Jen.
Hi, so Blanca, I generally really liked what you said about not just seeking out women, but seeking out all people in industry that's in need. And then you brought up education, and I think the difference where you have a reverse demographic situation is that there are no limitations in education for men, but there are in our industry for women. So I don't think it's necessarily about hiring women for the sake of hiring women, but doing what we can to make sure that those limitations are as few as possible, because we do need people and we don't want to limit the pool of people that we can welcome into this industry.
What do you see as limitations?
So for example, when I had my babies and I was still nursing on job sites, that was extremely difficult because there are no facilities, or there were no facilities that existed for that. I'm in management, so I had the capability to get to my car and take care of what I need to do in my car, but that took, this was many years ago that I had my kids, so the technology is a little bit better, but it would take me 45 minutes to do what I needed to do. That's not something that is readily accommodated on a job site. So it's things like that. Also, the way women are treated on job sites is, I would say, unacceptable on certain job sites still. So I think really training behavior and empowering the men who not only tolerate or accept women, but who support women is really important, because I think the majority or the non-minority people are the ones with the most power to affect change. So I think supporting from that perspective is really important.
Yeah, I will relate to the aviation industry again. I think on your first part, we solved it by giving the women the time to stay home. I admit I have 2 children and I stayed for each and one of them. The day I knew I was pregnant, I stayed home because it's just too dangerous for flying and all the stuff that you go through. So I was home for 1 year for each of them. So yes, there the industry, of course, just needs to accept reality and then work around it. It's not possible to have breastfeed your baby in the crane. I know Kelleher has like cranes going up, cabins coming down and everything, but that's not the purpose of it. So that's indeed one part where I exactly follow you. The other part, a little less, because the most harsh comments I got was from women and not from men. I remember being an entire female crew, 4 cabin and 2 pilots, we were all women, and there's somebody asking, yes, can they come and see to the cockpit? And so after the flight we say, yeah, no problem. So the door opens, there's a lady entering, and she says, oh, 2 women, when have I known I would have not taken this flight? And I was like, enjoy your holiday.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. My aunt is one of those types of women, and interestingly enough, I believe studies show that female pilots do better under high-stress situations, just like female surgeons have better outcomes, just like maybe female crane operators are better, whatever it might be. I think it's behavior for everybody.
I follow exactly what you say on culture, because I've heard horrific stories. I've spoken to female crane operators who were worried about coming down the tower crane at the end of the night because they didn't know who was waiting at the bottom of the crane. And imagine that in your workplace. You know, you're scared to go to the car park, you're scared to walk out there. That's the reality of it. I've talked to a mobile female crane operator who had a guy turn up around her mobile crane at 4 in the morning, hiding around the back of it, stalking her, turning up at her work site. Nothing was done because that guy's productivity in his work was far above how they valued what she was saying about what was happening. So I get the culture thing. I get the sexual harassment. I've seen it, I've heard it, it happens, and that is something we really need to fix, 100%.
Absolutely. Did we have? All right. We will go ahead and wrap this session up now. Thank you again to our roundtable panelists. There were some really thought-provoking things to say and really enlightening. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss you guys for lunch, which is sponsored by Shaft and Rental Cranes. And during lunch, I want to encourage everyone to stop by the Conductix stand. They've kindly sponsored some drink tokens that can be used at the hotel bar. So one more round of applause for our